This is ScreenView with Peter Van, Aimee Morgan, and John Denny. Fan us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at ScreenView Show, and join in on the conversation on Google+.
Hello and welcome to ScreenView episode 31. 12. John, stop it. Always just trying to throw me off freaking episode numbers and stuff. I saw you roll your eyes. Don't do that like, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I honestly was doing nothing else.
That's all right. I almost went there 32, but it is 31.
Stop it. Both stop. But yeah, this is a special episode where where we celebrate Aimee finishing all 5 seasons of Mad Men.
Yay!
All 5 seasons.
I honestly thought you would give up.
I thought so too.
Really?
I honestly did not think you would make it.
Yeah, but season 4 was just so good.
It was the best season. It
I
actually
agree with
is
that.
better than 5. Truthfully.
Yes, I agree. Season 4, it got really good in season 4, and then season 5 happened. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened, Mad Men? Did you drop the ball? I mean, toward the end it got really good, but I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah. So Aimee, how overall, like, just whatever you can think of. John and I have obviously been caught up since since the beginning of. I have no idea what I'm saying. Anyway, Aimee, why don't you just tell us what you think of Mad Men?
Okay, well, the first 2 seasons were really slow. They had a very slow burn, but I'm glad that I had them because it does base a lot of how, like, the character reactions later make sense. Like, because of what the first 2 seasons built, now I understand why when Don reacts the way that he does to Mr. Price in season 5, I get why he can't trust him anymore. Because I'm like, oh, I see why. It's because I have the backstory to kind of support the way that he reacts and does things. And so I'm like, it makes perfect sense to me of the reason why I can't trust you. Where he can be so accommodating and he can, accept the weaknesses of those around him. This is the one, it's the deal breaker for him. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it made perfect sense to me how he reacted in season 5. So I was like, as much as season 1 and season 2 were hard to get into, once you get past those 2 seasons, if you can get, past that, then you're good. You're good. It'll get really good. And season 4 was really great. One thing I do like about it, besides the one thing that I can't ever get over that I have a hard time is like they're drinking and smoking, and their affairs were just like, oh, I can't stand these things. There's a lot of that in there, but if you can get past that, yeah. It gets really good. What was it? Yeah, I was going to say, the reason why is I like this show is because these characters are very flawed. They're not perfect at all. They are hypocrites. They do things that I don't agree with, but they're characters that are extremely flawed. But then you see those that are flawed kind of start, getting a little better. And then you see some at the very beginning that were kind of like, oh, they were straight guys that just did, they were good people and all that. And then you start to see them making decisions that they start going into the dark realm. Like Peter Campbell is just like, oh my gosh, perfect example of that. At first I thought, okay, he's just one of those guys. It's, kind of annoying, but, he's a good guy. He does what he's supposed to. Now he's doing stuff that I'm like, I can't, I've lost all respect for him because he's just a creep.
You had respect for him for the beginning?
I can't believe you had
respect for him. I thought, well, but then at the very beginning, he does things that you're like, okay, all right, maybe he just made a mistake and he's gotten over it. But, like, no, he made some mistakes that I thought, okay, well, but now he's making such bigger ones now that I'm like, I cannot, I have a hard time watching his character because I think, it's Peter again, who's he made a few mistakes in the first 2 seasons that I was, I still thought he was okay. Now I just don't want to watch him. I think he's one of the antagonists now, and I'm like, you know what, it's the sooner they get him off the show, the better.
Right.
I've never enjoyed watching Pete's character.
There was a time where I thought, okay, yeah, he's that guy that really annoys me, but like, but there were parts where I thought, okay, I can respect him, I guess. Accept. Like, I can't. I guess I can't really. Yeah, there are just some things I guess I could relate to in a few instances, like the father that he couldn't live up to, and the few other things that just that I liked, but it's gone now, and what's replaced it is stuff that I'm like, okay, sorry, Peter, I'm Mr. Campbell, I can't like you anymore. There was a time where I actually thought he was all right. He's just like one of those guys, the geeky guys that's always the straight shooter that, never does anything wrong, is doing everything that's right, and, that way, which can kind of be annoying. But I thought, okay, well, I've been characterized as that sometimes. But that's where I could kind of relate to him a little bit. But those things are not there now, and I'm like, okay, dude, I don't like you anymore. Go away.
Right.
But I mean, I can go through and each talk about every character, and but they're just like, I like what's going on. I like the fact that I hate Peter. Sorry, Peter. I know it's not that. It's so odd saying that. I like the fact that I hate Campbell because I have to hate somebody, and I definitely have a lot of dislike for him. I like the fact that Don has done this. I didn't really care for him all that much at the very beginning, and now I really like his character. I like the fact that he's remarried, which at first I thought, oh gosh, I didn't think I was going to ever like that. I thought I liked him and Betty together. But now she's even kind of doing stuff
Betty
that I was like,
horrible, horrible bitch.
She's so petty.
She is
it's
very petty. She's always been like that, but you just never saw it because you're always like, oh, poor Betty, poor Betty. And now that, she's married, she got what she wanted, and she's still a bitch. It's just like,
well, and that's the thing, is that up until the part where they finally divorced, I was actually like kind of on her side a little bit, going, well, I can get why she can't get over this about Don, the fact that he's lied, that he's hid his past. But at the same time, I also wanted to say, if she could only look at it from his point of view, she would be such a bigger person and a bigger character. And so but then when she couldn't, I was like, oh, well, then you don't deserve him, and I'm glad that she left. But now it's even worse. It's like, oh, now you're unhappy because you left, and you can't get over the fact that your perfect little life has been marred by Dawn for whatever reason, and you're like, now you've got to make sure that everybody is just as unhappy as you are. And I'm like, you know what? You're destroying your own happiness. He's not doing it. You're doing it to yourself. So I'm like, for Betty, I'm like, I could relate to her, and now I'm like, you know what? No, I can't relate to you anymore because you're making bad decisions that are causing your own unhappiness. She's a product of her own inability to not get over things that happen to you, and I feel bad for her.
She's always been pretty.
She's like a little whiny child.
What she wants.
Yeah, she's always gotten what she's wanted, but now it's time to be an adult and put the boots on and move forward from that, and she hasn't, which is sad because it's her own failing. And it makes sense for her character, and so I but still, it doesn't mean that I have to agree with it.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely.
I feel bad for the daughter that has to deal with the mom that's just the control freak that now she's just being petty and taking everything out on everybody. It's just,
Sally is going to be a screwed up girl.
Well, either she'll be a screwed up girl or she'll find her own path and move away from it and say, look, mom, dad are screwed up messes and I'm going to have my own life. That's, the reason why I say that is just because, like, my husband kind of did that with his life. Both his parents divorced when he was 10, and he's not anything like either one of them. He doesn't gravitate toward one or the other. He's his own person. And I could see Sally being that type of individual. But it's going to be really sad for her childhood, because she's just going to be drifting until she finds that one person that can kind of be her mentor. And I think the counselor that was there for a while was really helpful in that. Too bad she's not still going. I mean, I'm guessing that she could be still going. I don't know. But that was the one thing I thought, well, that's the stability that she's going to have for even a short time, is to have this counselor lady that she can talk with. So I like, there's so many things I can relate to in some of these things, because, and that's the other thing that makes it very, that's part of the Mad Men charm, is the fact that it's set in the past, during the time when you have, women's revolution and women's lib is going on, and you've got the civil rights movement is going on, and all of these things are going on because that's our past. It's very interesting to kind of see the take on how these guys are dealing with things like that are happening right now. And like some of the mindset, like divorce is kind of a taboo thing still here. And so, and you're kind of seeing how things are kind of slowly moving along, where they're like, okay, well, people are getting divorced now. And there's kind of taking this acceptance kind of in with it. But then there's also all of the other thing, the mindset of a lot of the men, where they're like, well, the women should just get you have a job until you get married, and then you're supposed to go home and have babies and just stay home. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so glad that is not what's going on now. The mindset of that is changed, it's shifted, and I like that. But it gives this whole nother aspect of things that, so while I'm watching the show, I'm like, oh wow, that's the way it was, and I'm like going, dang, I'm so happy that I'm not living in that right now. So because I'm a woman watching this, and I don't know if you guys have gotten that out of it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm really glad that that's the era that I did not grow up in. I grew up on the very tail end of that, and things are so much different now for women. You can have kids and a job and you do things like that, and sometimes you don't even have to have children if you don't want them. Right. And it's not a taboo thing. People don't think, oh, you're going to die an old maid if you're not that. I mean, that's just not the mindset anymore. And I really kind of appreciate that after seeing this and seeing how kind of the mind is on that, the consciousness between all of the characters and kind of what's expected of women. I don't know if you guys took the same thing out of it. I'm a woman watching it going, okay, if I was a woman growing up in this era, how would I feel? And I'm glad I'm not. There's a lot of little things that really stand out. So, like that to me. So, it's really interesting to see like the little, because they work in advertising, and so you see like the things that they're working on and stuff, and then they go into their houses and they have these little sets and stuff like that. And I'm not really familiar with a lot of stuff from back then in the 60s, but it's really cool to see like, oh, I remember my grandmother having something like that in her house, or I remember my mom having a set like that she finally got rid of after so many years. That's kind of fun to kind of see little things like that, and stuff that I've seen on other movies that like I'm like, oh, that's so period of that time that you've seen that, oh, this is the cliche kind of how people's houses and what they wore, and that's really fun to see things like that on the screen. And
it's interesting that they do that. Like, I was watching the show because a lot of the stuff in the '60s looks so. Nowadays, you're looking at it, it's like, wow, that looks so tacky and gaudy, and like to make it appealing to the viewer, so they're not like distracted by the ugliness of the sets.
Yeah.
That they can't follow the show. Where they're like. Even they think that some of that stuff looks good. They would design their house like that, but they're like, oh, okay, that's really nice chase launch. That's a really nice this. That's really nice the way that they did that. Not being like, oh my god, it's so ugly. Yeah. You can't focus on anything but how ugly it is.
Well, and not only that, is it kind of make it in the reference that they put it in. It makes sense to have like the office that they have, the new office that they moved into. It's it looks like that's where the period is going, and you can see how they're gradually moving things along. And I really liked that because I thought, wow, you know, I can give it a little bit of reference point now from one season to the next. We have this slight shift in what they wear, a slight shift in what the working environment that they're working in. You see how the women's hairdos are changing. And it's like, I like that because, you know, that suddenly makes it, oh, it was just so old back then. No, actually see how they're gradually changing. And now I'm going, oh, wow, how much I've changed since the 80s and then into the early 90s. And I'm like going, wow, that it just makes sense. The gradual change of how they've been doing that just really, really works for me. Yeah. And that's another reason why I kind of like the show is it's like, wow, you can just see how things kind of update from year to year. And I like that.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about Mad Men is that there are certain things that are kind of in your face. Like season 5 did a lot of in your face type things. They were, you know, they weren't being very subtle that people were very unhappy with their lives. And it was very like that. But the subtle things that I think are really interesting was that like, you know, once, you know, Don was always, you know, that he was always this way, or Roger was always this way. And then they, you know, when they married younger people, Don, you know, he upgraded a little bit in this regard and that regard. His apartment was definitely more upscale, and it was definitely like very modern looking. And even nowadays, like even that design was like, wow, that is expensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who still kind of have that design, you know. It's like, wow, look at that big ass couch, or you know, look at this, like just look at all of the stuff that they have. And then Rogers, you know, once he got married to Jane, and then he like his office turned into like a freaking, like they made a joke about it. I forget what they made a joke about, but it was like something like it essentially was like it was just like an acid trip. It was all like, you know, clear plastic, and it was like all this like going into a zone kind of thing and things like that. And then, you know, Peggy this season, once she quit, she was always trying to be one of the guys because she was always equal with them, and she would never transcend them. She needed to be one of them in order to transcend them and be, you know, higher and be better and be like more like Don. But then as soon as she quit, she got a new job, and then she eventually, you know, she started wearing, instead of wearing like more men-like clothing, she wore more women clothing, but at the same time it was more like power suit clothing. It was like bright red. It was like a very feminine, but at the same, it was like a skirt, you know, and everything, but at the same time it was very like a dominant type design. So
yes.
While there are some things that are in your face, there are a lot of subtleties that really do a good job of, you know, explaining, you know, just doing those things that you won't necessarily see before, but then when you think back on it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you come, and the reason why I see it is because I've pretty much watched a lot of it for the last 2 months, and so I'm like, you know, I watched it as it was progressing quite quickly, whereas like you guys, if you've seen it over the seasons, you know, over the last couple of years, it's a little bit slower, but for me, it really, really stood out because I saw, oh, wow, things have really changed. Oh, wow, things are changing again. I'm like, oh, okay. The context, I'm like going, okay, if people were watching this from week to week, you know, they might see it. It might be subtly there, but it's really apparent to me as I'm watching this, you know, go pretty quick. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. And I do like that. Even the subtleties in the characters are shifting and things like that. And I like that. You know, wow, it's just so many things, like the decisions that happened in, you know, the first episode or the first seasons, you know, they're starting to, you know, have an effect here now. Like I said, with Peter Campbell, he's just, you know, he went from one place, and yeah, I think he made a big mistake with what he did with Peggy at the very beginning of the seasons. But then I thought, well, you know, he moved past it, and Peggy moved past it too. They both made mistakes, and so I thought, okay, you know, so we got into season 2, into season 3, and then his ambition is starting to get so much bigger, and his arrogance is getting to the point where now he's intolerable, and it's all started from the very beginning.
Did you find it to be really awesome and rooting for Lane when he challenged him to a fist fight?
Oh, heck yeah!
Then the way everybody else was just like,
I want to see this happen. Yeah, that was awesome. I loved that. That was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the problem with Peter is that he wants to be one of the big boys so badly that he's overcompensating and trying to be like them so much. Like, Don's always been a hard ass, and Sterling's always been a hard ass, and like a cocky hard ass. Mm-hmm. And Cooper is kind of always, in the back and not really doing much of anything. But Pete Campbell wants to be so much like Don Draper and Sterling, whatever his first name is.
And he doesn't even know what those guys
Sterling.
are. I mean, that's the thing. He's trying to be something that he thinks that they are, but they really aren't.
Right, and he comes off as such a jerk and like so unlikable that it's just like you want to punch him in the face, and when it happened 3 times this season, it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, especially like this past season where.
But like even in season 3 and 4 when he was competing with Ken Cosgrove.
Yep.
And it was like, you can't be a dick because you're still one of the lowly people.
Right. Yeah. And
you're making a good deal of money.
And I feel like it epitomized like kind of like what he wanted, because he got to the point, I forget which season it was, he was just like, why can't I get everything I want?
Right.
And it was like, that is such like a baby thing, It's just like you're not, you're not 10 or 11 anymore. You can't have everything you want, and you can't get everything you want, and it's just not the way life works. And I think it was this season where he, that he tries so hard to be like Don that when they were, at that brothel. With the Jaguar guy, he just had so much disdain for Don when he found that he was just so happy with his wife that he didn't need to like pick up anybody at the brothel or pay anybody at the brothel,
Right.
And he had so much disdain for him because he was like, I worked so hard to be you, and now you're no longer you. And it was just
I saw you for years cheat on your wife with so many secretaries and so many people throughout the offices that now I'm doing that.
And now you're not. And it's like,
and you're not.
Yeah, it's like I've gone through so far to try to be you, but at the same time I can't be you anymore because you're not. You're so happy now. It's like you were so unhappy for so many years, and I was trying to be that. I essentially, I married a woman I didn't really want to marry. I didn't really want to settle down. And then he was like, he's like, and you weren't happy because you put your job in front of yourself. And now I'm unhappy because I put my job in front of myself. But now you're happy and you don't care about your job and you're still rich and you still have everything you want. And it's like, he's just so angry now, And I wonder how they're going to explore the fact, Lane's death and how unhappy he was. But nobody knows how unhappy he was except for Don, who obviously is not going to say anything.
Well, even Don didn't know the extent of his unhappiness because he never talked about it. I mean, like he was one of those guys that just like through the whole thing, he's always been told what to do and done it.
Yeah,
this was the first time when he actually, when he left the other company and went to work with them. That was the first time he actually put his foot down. And the reason why he did it is because they said, well, you could just come with us. Mm-hmm. And he didn't ever take that initiative for himself.
Right.
And now that he did, and he was losing it because he made a mistake, it's like, if only he had, and I keep on, this is the big tragedy of his character, is the fact that he didn't confide in them. I mean, if he had come to Don and said, look, I'm in a financial bind here. I need some money and I need it fast. Don would have given it to him.
Yeah, and I think if...
It's like, it's just like if only he had just talked more and if he had shared a little bit more, then he would have felt, he would have gotten over whatever pride or whatever it was that he just wanted to take care of himself or whatnot. He wouldn't be in the position that he was in, and then he wouldn't be dead. And I thought, it just makes me cry because the guy was such a nice guy, and he made a mistake, yes, but...
And if his answer to Don's question of why didn't you just come to us wasn't so demented and so in denial, he probably wouldn't have fired him, right? Because he didn't say, he's like, I don't know what I was, if he said, I don't know what I was thinking, I should have come to you. Instead, he was like, why even fuss over $8,000? Like, why? And he's like, he still didn't get the gravity of the situation until he was like, obviously you don't know what you did wrong. So obviously I can't fire. Like, I mean, obviously he knew everything he was doing was like horrendously incorrect, but his British pride and his pride in himself really stopped him from being able to own up to that fact.
When you dig yourself into a deep hole, it's not always easy to just say, "Oh, I'll just own up to it and everything will be all right."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was
Well,
pretty
even
obvious,
his reaction was like, dude, you're just digging yourself deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, goodness.
But I am glad
that was the tragedy of that, because I thought, I really liked Price. I really liked his character, some of the things he did. But then even at the very end, all of his decisions, like he said what he said to Joni, and because of what he said to her, she did what she did. And I think, dude, it's like you're doing this over money, and all you had to do was say something to somebody else, and it's affecting everybody in the office because the way you're reacting so that you get what you need, what you think that you want, and it's like, so all of the people around them have made decisions just based on that, and so it's like it was really great conflict that exploded everything on the scene, and that's what made the end of season 5 just so insane. And I like the end of season 5, but season 4 was much better. But yeah.
The only reason he got caught is because Cooper opened up an envelope that was on his desk.
Right.
And, like, if he had never done that, obviously it seems so stupid to say, oh, if he had never done that. But, like, I don't know.
Right. So you're saying, like, essentially the reason that he got caught was so... Uh-oh. We lost Jon.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
I'll give it a second.
I think that was the internet saying it's time for bed.
Aww.
Oh wait, he's back.
Yay!
Wow.
Yay! Well, that was.
It was just a little hiccup.
Yeah. So what you were saying, Jon? I think you were just like, it was so thinly like caught, right? Is that what you mean? Like it's just so surprising.
Yeah, like
thinly caught?
For someone who's very hands off in the office, in Cooper, he became involved with something that he probably wouldn't have done in seasons 1 through 4.
Right.
And then
you're right.
That led to someone killing himself.
Right. It was so thin. It was like so.
I don't say it was obviously
inconvenient. It was like, oh, how convenient that know, Cooper decided to do his job, or a job that he actually doesn't do.
That's life though, because like you know things like that. I mean, you know, in my first relationship, because I was married before and I divorced him, but that's how things fell apart. Was I found the one thing for the first time in a while that I decided to sit down and do something, and I found out I caught my ex-husband in a lie. You know, and it's one of those out of the blue things that happen, and then suddenly your life takes a complete different shift just because you did one thing that was out of the ordinary. So I mean, that to me, I thought, well, it just makes sense to me. So I know, I mean, it was this off. I thought, yeah, Cooper usually doesn't do that, but the one time that he does, he found out. You know,
like,
and that's how you catch people in lies too.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Do one thing out of ordinary.
Even then, Cooper's reaction wasn't, oh my God, you know, this guy's stealing money. He thought it was Don was stealing money or something.
Or
he just thought that Don had decided to make a decision behind everybody else's back.
Being a nice guy, you know, being the nice guy that Don tries to be when it comes to, like, money situations. Because, you know, remember in season 4 when Peter Campbell didn't have that money to pay for the down payment, Don was like...
And Don covered him.
Yeah, I took care of it. And it was like, he didn't even he didn't say anything, you know? He just like, if Peter Campbell never said anything to him, he would have been like, fine, that's fine. So he kind of, you know, because Cooper said, he's like, you can't expect to be the good boy while the adults run the business. So I think that was a good point, Amy, that was just like, oh yeah, you know, because he covered his bases so well. He was like, Cooper would never do his job. And then Cooper, like, finally decides to do something similar to that. And it's like, wow, that's the one base he didn't cover, and then he loses everything.
Yeah.
It's not even that, like, it's not even that he did his job. It was like an envelope was put on his desk that wasn't his.
Right.
And instead of just giving it to someone who it belonged to, and obviously that person, you know, wouldn't have looked at it and said, oh, someone's stealing money.
Yeah.
He opened it up and rifled through it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not, I don't know.
He's curious.
Yeah.
It's in our nature to be curious. I'd be curious. Oh, what is this? Oh.
85-year-old man.
Yeah,
curious.
exactly. I just think it was so sad. It's so sad that he killed himself, but at the same time, it's like he couldn't even properly kill himself.
I know, going in and trying to.
Jaguar's
Well, and
fault.
I also thought it was kind of funny how he was like the account, the card that he was trying to asphyxiate himself in, and I thought, yeah, it's so crappy that he can't even turn it on and kill
Yeah.
himself. I thought, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's
his-
so
you know,
ironic.
Yeah, his lifelong, his attempt to be a sales guy, and he just couldn't. He couldn't
He
even
couldn't
kill
seal the
himself in
deal.
the same account that he tried to land. So sad.
Jaguar. A
geez.
man can't even kill himself in this piece of this.
Yeah. And the thing is that nobody will ever know that, only him.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
So sad.
That was funny. That was a really funny part of the. I just laughed
Although,
and I thought, oh, he's
even-
trying to kill himself, and I thought, watch, he's gonna try to start the car,
Right.
and it's not
saw it
gonna
coming,
start.
Yeah. So sad.
Oh
But,
goodness.
All right, well, Amy, John and I are both happy that you have finally caught up because we were
Definitely.
trying our best, throughout the season, just discussing,
Yeah.
the fist fight and Lane, trying to kill himself in a Jaguar, and it's the same thing. Like we were just trying to keep it hush hush on you, but
Yeah.
now that
I think you guys did spill a few things, but honestly, I've been so busy that it just went whoosh, right, one in one ear, right out the other. So everything, as it was happening, I don't remember you guys ever saying stuff that I was like, oh, I just thought, I'll just put that in the back and not think about it. So,
well,
but yeah.
Hopefully, the show will probably return sometime in the winter. So
Yes, and I look
definitely.
forward to that. It'll be really cool to
Winter
to talk
4
more.
years from now.
Yes,
Yeah.
winter 4 years from now, since everybody looked older. Sally was like 10 feet taller than she was in season 4.
Yeah.
No, and they replaced the little boy, the boy that was his
They
Right,
did
Bobby.
yeah.
because he
Yeah,
was
I
in Once
was like-
Upon a Time now.
Yeah, and I saw that. I thought, oh, that's right. He's the kid that was on Once Upon a Time. He probably couldn't be in it anymore. And
Yeah.
you know what? It was kind of seamless because his character really didn't do much to begin with other than be the little brother. And they haven't put a lot into his character. So I'm like, it was fine. I thought, oh, yeah, he's supposed to be Bobby, so I'll just not worry about
Yeah.
it.
I
did-
think
Really didn't.
for the kids, the one you need to definitely look for, in the coming seasons is
Sally.
Sally. She's going to be, she's a
Oh
she's
my
a good
gosh,
she's a good
Sally.
actress, and she
Yeah.
plays
The
that
s-
part. She is that
She-
age, so she plays it well.
Yeah.
There's some really screwed up stuff that she gets to play.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Not only that is the stuff that she accidentally falls into.
Oh yeah.
The whole thing with
Yeah.
Roger and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how terrible! I was like, oh, I'd be
Yeah.
mortified.
In that whole episode, you were like,
Child.
"Wow, Roger and Sally are so good together. They play off each other so well."
Yeah.
And then she sees that, and it's all
Yeah, and that was just like, oh,
It's just like, so terrible.
what a way to scar a child for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
And then
Right.
the whole thing that the mom is doing to Dawn again, it's just like that's so a stepwife
Yeah.
cliche stuff.
Yeah.
But it happens. I know because one of my best friend is second wife, and the first wife does
Yeah.
everything that she can to the ex-wife everything that she can to just drive a wedge between the two of them, and that's exactly what Betty is doing, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, thankfully for Megan, right? Because Megan definitely makes him a better guy, and
Oh yeah.
it
Well,
would
and
have worked. Become much
she-
worse.
I'm really glad that she stopped working in the office, to be honest. I mean, I know she was really good at it,
Yeah.
but I'm like, she kind of was getting into that cliche of, oh, I'm just going to do everything that my husband says and blah, blah, blah. And it's good that she put her foot down and said, no, I want to do this, and it's really important to me. And then Dawn, I think, Dawn, I think, just kind of respects her more because of it. But then you get this dynamic with her mom and her family. I mean, her dad supports her, but her mom is kind of like, oh, you need to grow up and not follow stupid dreams. I'm like, golly!
Yeah.
Every woman in this is just in that mindset. It's like, oh, I just want to punch them all.
Yeah. Definitely an old-fashioned French-Canadian mother or something like that.
Yes.
But I mean-
well, and that's just Joni's mom is exactly the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? You guys are part of the problem. Quit.
Yeah.
Just quit.
Yeah. not to mention when Megan quits, that the best argument between Don and Peggy takes place in the test kitchen.
Yeah,
And that,
Yeah.
it was good.
they were like yelling at each other, and that one tester was still there. I was like, "What? He's still there?" It was pretty good.
Yeah. the dynamics between all the characters are just very, very rich. They have a lot to play off of at this point because there's a lot to play off of. I wonder if Peggy's ever going to come back because, hey, Pete and all of the other guys were gone for a little while. They came back. So, well, actually, I take that back. Peter Campbell wasn't gone very long. He was one of the guys that came over when they moved over,
Ken
right?
was gone for a while.
Ken Cosgrove was gone.
Yeah,
and
then
they brought back what's his name from one episode just to explain what happened to him, and they joined the Hare Krishnas.
Oh yeah, the Hare Krishnas.
Him, yeah. I thought that was hilarious. It just made me laugh. I was dying laughing, going, "Oh my gosh!"
Poor guy. Yeah, I mean, you don't know.
See him with just this little thing of hair. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, you don't know what'll really happen. I mean, there's 2 seasons left of the series.
Oh,
so
wow.
there's 26 episodes left, and definitely be an interesting show for sure.
Yep.
But all right, well, that was great to finally hear what you have to say about the whole series. It's been a long time coming. It's actually been
much nice about it anymore.
It's almost been a year, so it's almost been a year coming. So absolutely. But I think that is a great place to end episode 31.
Yes.
So we will see you guys some other time, and definitely let us know what you think about Mad Men on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ScreenView Show, and let us know. So we will, for me, John, and Aimee, we will see you guys next time.
Yep.
You've been listening to ScreenView. ScreenView is a radio-free Cybertron production. Visit us at tfradio.net for show notes and to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at tfradio for news and updates. Watch our live stream at tfradio.net/live. Join our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/tfradio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, TF Radio Network. Have a question or comment? Leave it on our Facebook fan page or mail it to contact@tfradio.net. Copyright 2011, Radio Free Cybertron.